Welcome everyone to another action figure review as I have the Medicom toy Mafex, the Amazing Spider-Man. Finally, the wait is over. We have the second of the three Spider-Mans for the trio of the Mafex collection, the Andrew Garfield edition. And the last one we saw was the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, the Tobey Maguire edition. That was 5 months ago. Time has flown by, and now we have another highly anticipated release for the live action movies. So technically this is probably mostly for Spider-Man No Way Home, but due to the licensing like the Marvel Legends and the SH Figuarts, they couldn't put it on their packaging, so they've just titled this as the Amazing Spider-Man 2, so the 2014 sequel movie. And this is number 248. Fun fact, the first ever Mafex release was in fact the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man for the first film. So it's been a while since we saw No Way Home. That was 2021, and the Marvel Legends and SH Figuarts released their figures 2 years ago now. So those of you waited patiently, hopefully this will be your definitive version. As we know, Mafex always do a great figure for their MCU characters. So in terms of the box, you can see the usual logos and stickers and titles. Really cool shot of Spider-Man on the side. Here's a look at the top as well as the bottom. And at the back of the box, of course, titled The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Really cool shots of the figure in different poses. So let's get The Amazing Spider-Man out of its packaging and take a closer look. So I really like this background of the electricity, of course, to match up with the movie with Electro. And then inside we have your standard manual as well as the plastic stand for each Mafex figure. And here is the overall The Amazing Spider-Man inside its packaging. And here is a quick overview shot of The Amazing Spider-Man with all the accessories included. So here is the first look at The Amazing Spider-Man taken out of its packaging. First impressions, nothing too surprising in terms of the first look. It is everything I expected ever since they released the official promo photos last year. It is what we see in person. The colors are really nice. I think they pop a lot, even though this is meant to be the darkest suit. The web lines are painted really well with the logo at the chest, at the back as well. The Amazing Spider-Man, the Andrew Garfield one, of course, I think is probably the most comic accurate one in terms of the suit. And this one I've always liked over the first movie, even though the first movie suit looks pretty menacing as well. But you can see the big wide white eyes, and proportionally I think it's a lot more muscular in comparison to the Figuarts or Marvel Legends. It kind of reminds me of the Tobey Maguire Mafex one they've done. So you can see the joints are a lot more kind of sticking out. I think you need to get both of these Spider-Mans in the right poses to really get the best out of him. But you can see that in terms of the body and height, it's slightly more than the Tobey version. So overall, I think this look is great. No doubt the colors are really nice. And if we compare it to the Marvel Legends released 2 years ago, you can see even the blue colors are very different. I would say that the Mafex one is a lot better in terms of the paint. And then the Figuarts one, which I really like. I think proportionally, I must admit, the SH Figuarts is probably better than the Mafex one. It's kind of like the Tobey version where the transition from top to bottom is a lot more smoother. And even though the red colors are probably not as nice as the Mafex one. So these two are obviously the main competitors with each other. And normally I would say that the Mafex ones have always been better than Figuarts recently, especially when they released them second. But this time I've got to give it to the SH Figuarts in terms of proportion. But color wise, I think Mafex is the better one. So yeah, this is personal opinion. But I think some people would say that in terms of the proportions, the Figuarts one just looks slightly better. So first impressions, of course, a really good sculpt by Medicom. But of course, we do need to place the accessories on. So for the accessories, of course, we have the alternate hands. There are a total of 7 pairs, and one set with the feet include the magnet. So that's something that's pretty standard for Spider-Man Mafex figures. So first up, we have the pair of hands right out of the packaging, which is the closed fists. For the second set of hands, we have a pair of open palms, which is the wall crawling hands. And of course, we have the standard set of web shooter hands. Here we also have a set of hands to hold on to the webs. For the fifth set of hands, we have a pair of finger pointing ones, which are very suited for this Spider-Man, but of course is now pretty standard for that meme. They have also included a set of hands to hold on to the mask. And as always, they've included a pair of hands and feet with the magnet, which is a nice bonus. As for the web accessories, they've included 6 in total with a pair of extra long ones, the medium ones and the short ones. And here is the set of webs in action with the short ones. And here is the use of the medium webs. And here is the use of the extra long webs with the hands. And here is the moment where Spider-Man takes off the mask and reveals Peter Parker, the Andrew Garfield look, which of course has been included with the neck piece. And this is a decent sculpt. They've gone for the same route as the Tobey Maguire edition, where they've gone for a much younger looking version, which I'm fine with. Technically, this is based on The Amazing Spider-Man 2 rather than No Way Home. And I think the likeness is okay, it's fine. And it certainly passes as the Andrew Garfield look. And it's always nice to have this head sculpt. As you know, the SH Figuarts didn't have time to get the license, so there was none included in that one. So I think this likeness is decent, and if we compare it to the Marvel Legends version, you can see that the Marvel Legends one, even though it's based on The Amazing Spider-Man 2 as well, they've gone for a older looking Peter Parker, which I do like. And for the Figuarts one, as I mentioned, they couldn't get the license, but I do have a third-party edition, which actually is pretty good, the one that was made. So this one does represent more of that No Way Home look. But of course, this one is always nice to have an official version. And next up, we have the articulation, so the movement of the Amazing Spider-Man, starting off with the head sculpt. So you can tilt it left and right very smoothly, and then round and round. Kind of stiff because it's right out of the box, but you can tilt it left and right, and then downwards quite a lot, which is needed for the Spider-Man, and then upwards motion as well. Kind of moves with the neck, so you can rotate that. And then for the arms, you can see for the stretching, very simple, side to side. So very good movement there, forwards, upwards, backwards. And this is actually very smooth in terms of the arms. Very good articulation. And then we can move them inwards, which is very important. And of course, we have good rotation on the bicep. And then there should be an elbow bend with the hand movement as well, and hinge. And then of course we have these extra kind of pads on the shoulders, so you can kind of stretch them out and move them in as well. And then for the body, so you can turn them side to side. So again, very good movement on this Mafex 360 if you want. And you can kind of hear the sounds because it's right out of the box. So just be careful there. And you can tilt it downwards and upwards, creates a slight gap. But you can move it side to side and rotate them left and right. And for the waist, it goes downwards, although it does kind of take it apart. So again, this one you need to be very careful, but you can rotate it all the way around and side to side. Backwards, once again, creates a slight gap, and then the other side as well, you can see. And then for the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, I noticed they made this part really soft on the waist, and it's the same thing for the Amazing Spider-Man, so that's a good thing. I guess this is for the articulation, where you can tuck the waist in and then kind of move it. And then for the legs, they kick forwards, no problems there, as well as backwards rotation. You can kind of pull the legs down, and then we can knee bend very far back and rotate the foot and a toe hinge as well. So obviously for this Spider-Man, you can get him in some very dynamic poses. Just got to really play around with it. So kind of like any old Spider-Man, you just got to take your time in terms of the articulation. And now for the size comparisons, starting off with the Amazing Spider-Man himself, with the Marvel Legends on the left and the SE Figuarts on the right. And here it is next to the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, with the Mafex version on the left and the SE Figuarts on the right. And here it is standing next to the Integrated Suit Spider-Man, with the SE Figuarts on the left and the Marvel Legends on the right. And here it is next to some more Marvel Legends with Ned Leeds and MJ. And here it is next to some comic book Marvel Legends with the animated series Spider-Man and Gwen Stacy. And next to some SE Figuarts Avengers with Captain America and Iron Man. And finally next to the Jada Toy Street Fighter line with Ken and Chun-Li, showing you the differences in colour with the red and blue. So now for my final thoughts on the Medicom Mafex The Amazing Spider-Man for The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Is this worth the wait? I'll say yes, especially if you skipped on the SE Figuarts or the Marvel Legends versions, since this is another great Spider-Man to have in your collection, whether it's for your The Amazing Spider-Man 2 display or the No Way Home line. It is what I expected since we saw a great figure for the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, and this is really the second of the trio of the collection. And of course, Medicom have made the Amazing Spider-Man figures in the past. So no doubt this is the best one yet. We have different hands, the webs, the mask on its own, which is expected. But this time, of course, we have the Peter Parker head sculpt. And I guess this is what sets it apart from the SE Figuarts version. Although personally, I do like the proportions on the Figuarts. It's a great figure. This one is still great and fun to pose around. And I think they've done an excellent job overall with the paints and sculpt. So if you decide on this one or the SE Figuarts, I would say you'll still have a great figure. You could argue there are no other accessories like some of the ones we saw in the past Amazing Spider-Mans by Medicom. I would have liked to see maybe a lab coat, something like a soft cloth version, just to get something different this time and fit into the No Way Home display as well. But it is what it is, and it's still a great figure overall. So my score is an 8 out of 10, the same score I gave the SH Figuarts Andrew Garfield version and the Tobey Maguire version of the Mafex one. So it is really personal preference which one you get, and either way you're going to have an amazing figure. Check out my Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man Mafex figure review as well as my other recent videos on my channel. I look ahead to the integrated suit release now and the other ones they've also announced, and who knows if they're going to give us any of the villains in the future. Thanks for watching.